Good morning. Happy Wednesday, August 26th. I'm Jeremy Wolf, former MLB draft pick. My mic is working. I can see the sound. I just spent the last hour trying to get this freaking microphone to work. We had so much to talk about today. We're going to get to it. But in 3 minutes, we're going to talk to Jake Sudreth, who's a good friend of mine, who is a former minor league baseball player who started up a couple businesses, one a facility in town, and then another an analytics app that we will be able to dive further into with him. So that's coming up in 3 minutes. Normally on our show, for our new viewers, we do quick hits. We go into a bunch of topics at the top of the hour, usually 11 o'clock Eastern. We jump right in with a guest. Today, because let me hear, our producers are in my ear. It's just me. And I couldn't get the microphone to work. So, but today's episode is going to be a little bit different. The whole Mark Walter, Guggenheim, TWG thing is something we have to talk about. So I did a bunch of research. I did as much as I could to just pull as many resources as I could together. And I wrote a script, and I wrote it all out. I had it on whiteboards. I did all the things I needed to do. And we're going to talk about it. And we're going to go through everything because it has real serious implications for, number one, how money moves in general. How money moves in general at the highest level with all of these private equity firms or conglomerates that own many, many multiples of businesses where the money moves inside of that. So there's a component of if you buy a business and you have another business and you have this whole umbrella of companies in similar and different industries, how the money can move between them because you own all of the companies, right? So we have to talk about that. We have to talk about like the business side of it. We have to talk about the federal investigations and the ramifications of that. And the ramifications of that impact us and our conversation because the things that are happening in sport, the Los Angeles Lakers being sold to, in the process of being sold to, Bob Iger, former CEO of Disney, Joshua Kushner, brother to the son-in-law to the president of the United States, plus what's going to happen with the Dodgers. We have to talk about the Dodgers TV contract. We have to talk about deferred money for a majority of stars. We have to talk about the money movement in baseball because of the decisions that were being made by the ownership group of the Los Angeles Dodgers that made this situation happen. We have to talk about what Chelsea, with the owner, they are part of the ownership group of Chelsea Football Club in the Premier League. We have to talk about that. So we're about to jump in with Jake Sudreth. We will have a great conversation with Jake. And then we will talk about the Mark Walter stuff. And then we'll see where it takes us. We'll go from there. Okay. Jumping in with Jake right now. Hey, buddy.
How's it going?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Because I just spent an hour trying to fix this microphone.
Yeah, it's not good.
Okay, good. We are live. We jump right into it with our guests. So please, okay. Jake, who is Jake Sudreth? Where are you? What are you working on? What are you doing? Just so our audience can understand how the things that you're doing, I think, are really amazing, and I'm really excited to talk about them. So let's jump into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a career college student, it seems like. I got 2 master's degree and a bachelor's degree, and in the process ended up playing about a year and a half in the minor leagues for the White Sox. Once the career ended with the White Sox, then I became a Grand Junction Rocky in the last season there, won the Pioneer League. And, once I was done playing, the love was always still in the game, and that's what everything's been focused around since. So I started my own baseball training facility, PDP Athletics. It's in Chandler, Arizona. And I've had that going now we're coming up on the 3-year mark here in a couple of days. And that's kind of catapulted as we've gone to what I'm building now with Kinna Base Sports, which is the only system in the world that combines lab grade kinematics, predicted ground reaction forces to 98, 99% as accurate as a real force plate, and can do that without the force plates. It also combines, the ball and bat, basically a launch monitor, and it does all of those things in real time, gives you data and gives you feedback within 20 to 30 seconds instead of waiting a week for that data to come in.
What has been the hardest part for you transitioning from being a college student, being a professional athlete, to saying, well, I'm going to run this facility? How did that transition go for you? And you're running two businesses at the same time. How are you able to compartmentalize all of the duties you have for one, all of the duties you have for other? What's that been like for you?
And going into the facility, I think one of the big things is, run our facility kind of very much like a locker room to some degree. It's very much open, like, hey, we're trying to tell athletes what it looks like at the next level. And, to be able to do that, it's, everything from, hey, this is, the kind of person you're going to need to be. This is, the different experiences that you're going to have. So doing that, it helps you stay connected to the game. It helps you stay, it doesn't really feel like you've left it all the time, specifically related to that. Then it becomes the other duties associated with that are now what the focus has to become. So, you're working on all the administrative side of everything, and if anything ever gets slow or harder to work through, it's that side of things. So that's where just having a good support system helps there to make sure that you can handle everything on the back end. And then from the motion capture perspective, that's been the significantly more challenging side to get things going. We've been at it for a little over a year now, and we're just now getting to the point where we're ready to go to market with that.
Who is your team? Who is your support system? And how do you know that those are the right people to have in your corner?
And as far as kind of everything I'm doing, most of it has been family and friends from the very beginning. So when I started my facility, the team that did all the painting, that laid the gym floor, it was myself, my dad, my mom, and my wife. Um, and that was pretty much everything. My dad and I run the facility together. So him and I handle, or mainly him handles all of the back end of everything, and I handle everything that happens, the day to day to kind of keep the wheels going, and he keeps the lights on. And then from the motion capture company perspective, he's in that with me as well, to be able to help run, make it a business, all help sell it, keep the direction of where we want to go, determine some of the things that we want to track, or some of the things that we want to be able to show people, to make sure that athletes and coaches can use it, and it's not just something built by engineers. And he'll help run all of that, support system when I have to leave those places, or when I do have late nights. It's been my wife. I had to talk to our developers in Germany, and in order to do that, I had to go to the German workday, which starts at 11 p.m. Arizona time. So I'll work my regular day at the facility. There's been some days where I just don't go home. I stay till the Germans get there, and I'll work until 3 or 4 in the morning to be able to work the bulk of their workday and make sure that that feedback loop tightens up. So mainly it's been family that's been able to help through that. There's been, and we've got a pretty good support system as far as who's helping run things. I've got another coach in my facility that has been really, really good, Andrew Romanoli. Starting out in his coaching career, that he eventually wants to become an agent because of his ability to connect players.
It's amazing. The thing that we talk about on Open Athletes, the thing that I mentioned to you, was I want to use this as a place to showcase the things that you are doing,
Yep.
which is amazing. The steps that you're taking, like inside of sport and outside of sport, is exactly the type of thing that I hope the community that we're building is able to show people, in sports or not, the value that athletes can have, like in the marketplace of businesses, of ideas, of community. What has been the hardest part of the transition out of being a professional athlete to then this entrepreneur who has this facility, who's kind of this guy in baseball still, to not being in baseball, to like changing your work ethic from I am an athlete to now I am this guy building these companies? How has that transition of focus and energy been for you?
It's significantly harder to see what the goal is sometimes and see exactly where you're trying to go with things. I say that in terms of, when I was training to pitch, hey, these are the couple things that I know I need to do from a mechanical perspective or a strength perspective to gain an extra mile per hour. You're not always right in that, but you at least have a very clear roadmap as far as the capabilities and the qualities that you need to work on, and it's a little bit easier to go about that. When you're starting businesses, it's you kind of don't have too much of that roadmap all the time. You don't always have, hey, I just need to get more mobile to do this. You can provide a product that some people think is great, but not everyone's going to. You're so much more dependent on the outside perception to be able to run a training facility, for example, than you are from an athlete's perspective. Building your career, yes, obviously, it matters what the team thinks of you, but ultimately, if you become a good enough athlete or you perform well enough, you'll be able to stick around and usually keep moving up. That's not the case when you're building a startup. When you're building a startup, it's you've got to handle more, and you don't exactly know the problems until they come.
We talk a lot about having fun on this show. Playing sports is fun. Playing professional sports is really, really hard. And if you're really, really good or know how to separate it, it can be fun. When you were playing and you were getting, like, I played the same amount of time as you, about a year and a half, got injured for me, got released. I have more fun doing the thing that I'm doing now than I did playing professional baseball. Where do you see the similarities and differences between the two for you? Are you able to, have the fun that you were having playing baseball and the things that you're able to build in the community that you're building too?
I mean, I would say absolutely. Looking into, one of the big things that always drove me was competition and running a training facility. When we have pros come back for the off season, I throw to be able to throw live to them.
Nice.
Like I train for that. And hey, if a team wants me to go play at a men's league, I want to be able to throw, as hard as possible to be able to go do that. Being able to even have little competitions with athletes, whether it's, a command game or, working through different pitches or even spike ball to help an athlete warm up. I mean, different things like that, you know, keep the competition alive. I think those are, the areas that I still have a lot of fun because that was always what drove me then. And, finding ways to be able to do that. There's so many similarities in what I'm doing that allow me to do that now. And then, there's a lot more, I guess the right way to say it is probably, sense of pride in seeing something that you built start to come to fruition. Being able to see, hey, like I built this, and that's, probably more cool than it was, most of the time going through the playing career. I mean, there's things that we're doing with Kinebase that, I mean, are probably cooler feelings, or hey, we're about to lock down, our first sale. That is probably a cooler feeling than, almost any moment outside of, maybe signing the contract as an undrafted free agent.
Right. I agree with you there. Um, many we have many young people watching the show, kids in high school, college, early professional in their career. Um, we talk a lot about being in the window. My window was 2 years. Your window was 2 years of being in the window to being a professional athlete. And what can you do? What can you leverage outside of your career because of the fact that you're in the window? You have the opportunity to get in more rooms. Your story is, you said undrafted free agent. Tell us your story of how you went from four colleges in 4 or 5 years to then undrafted free agent. What was that transition like for you, that journey like for you? Because I see a lot of the tenacity of going college to college to college, just doing what you can to play, to then signing, and now the focus and like dedication you have to the things that you're doing are I see a direct line between your tenacity on the mound and your baseball career to the things that you're doing now. What was that journey like to get to the room and ultimately going, okay, I can now take what I learned from that and transition it into these things that I'm building?
Oh man, yeah, I think it's been, kind of a crazy road. You hear the stories that, sound like they could be a good movie. And, had I made a couple lovers further, there's probably a movie coming out soon. Uh, in high school, my sophomore year, I was told I was the worst player in the program by our head coach. Transferred after my junior year, was told, hey, don't expect to throw a whole lot. You're probably the sixth best pitcher on the team. And at the time, I was 84 to 87 going into my senior year. And I ended up throwing the second or third most innings in the state, had a 1.22 ERA, was 8-2. We won the state championship, but I threw 84 to 87. Got up to 89, 91, like touched it a couple times towards the end of my senior year. But I went to Hawaii Pacific Division II school. Went there, was on a pretty big scholarship that I was going to play right away. Nope, redshirted. They redshirted every freshman we had in the program that year. There were 13 of us. So come back, go to Mesa Community College, almost got cut in the fall. Quite literally was told in like October, if you don't change the way you throw, you're cut. There was no direction as far as, what to do. So, I started searching out outside resources, starting to study on my own. There were things that, hey, just kind of figured it out along the way, and ended up that season as an All-American and the single season and career saves record holder in one season. And went to BYU afterwards, was the closer at BYU my first year there. So my redshirt sophomore year, I had like a 3.8 ERA. I mean, it was solid. I looked at the season and thought I sucked, but if you look up the numbers, you're like, hey, those aren't bad, other than the fact that I hit 12 guys in 26 innings. Yeah, rough stretch. Then come back the next year, got cut. I was 2 minutes late to a 5 a.m. workout. Went through my workout, did my punishment, got to practice, got cut at practice. So from there, I took 19 credits that next semester. I had to get special approval to be able to do so. And I trained at a facility called Norton Performance up in Utah. And, what they were great at was the strength and conditioning aspect, being able to train like an athlete, not just a football player, like, the BYU weights program was at the time. And, everything for throwing I was doing in a parking garage throwing plyos. Kids there would, draw and chalk different stick figures, and that was my catch play partner. I would post videos of myself throwing there on, Twitter all the time, and, was able to get some pretty great resources. And as far as, people that would offer advice, obviously sometimes it's hard to determine what advice is good advice, and you just kind of do your best to say, hey, like I think this is something that might work for me. So like PFA, Dave Coggin, I used a lot of information from them. Joe Kelly, like how his transition happened and how he shortened his arm path. I did a very similar transformation, except I did it entirely on my own with like a couple messages from Dave Coggin, and a couple other people. And I told people on Twitter that I was 90-92. I had never touched a two. I basically just said, hey, by the time someone comes out to see me, I'll do it. Florida State came out to watch me throw a bullpen. Actually, they flew out to Arizona, and I went back home to Arizona. I was still up in Utah at the time, and I sat 91, 93. And he was like, hey, whatever we can get, open it up from the draft. We can, probably provide some scholarship money. Otherwise, we think he could be a pretty good back end of the bullpen arm. And I committed on the spot. I was like, yep, I'm in. Don't care. And they changed head coaches. They went from Mike Martin Sr. to Mike Martin Jr. And with that, they also changed pitching coaches. So I committed in like July, and I show up, and I mean, I don't know a single person there. For all I know, they don't even know I'm supposed to be there. And I walk in, I've got a locker. So I was like, all right, I guess somebody knows I'm supposed to be here. But yeah, it was, a weird situation. And then obviously the fact that it was the COVID year, I didn't throw a single inning. So go to Florida State, had, draft meetings with the Tigers and the Rays based on, metrics and stuff they saw me do in the fall, didn't throw an inning. Had great video to be able to show people from, my inner squads, and posted that on Twitter. But obviously, I thought I was done. It was the COVID year. I was like, hey, I was a 5th-year senior already. Florida State makes you take 12 credits in grad school, unlike most schools where it's 9. So I finished my master's degree in 11 months. And went the recruiting process again. I went to West Texas A&M, and I did that because they were a Division II school that gave me a pretty substantial scholarship. I mean, they gave me a full ride to go there, and we had an NC State pitcher, Arizona State pitcher, Clemson pitcher, Texas Tech pitcher. Our center fielder was Kyler Murray's backup at Oklahoma. I mean, it was bounce back university. Well, I go in, they say, hey, we want you to, compete to be the Friday starter or even the Saturday starter with the NC State arm. That's what I trained to do. I threw in summer ball all the way through the fall, get to the season. And about 2 weeks before opening day, they go, hey, you were an All-American closer 4 years ago. We're going to have you close again. I'm like, okay. I mean, I've done it. But what I wasn't able to do to have success was, still get into the routine that I had success with when I was a closer. Because as a closer, I treated every game like I was the starter of the 8th inning. I would basically do a starter's routine starting in the 5th inning to be ready for the 8th. Like if the game was within 6, I was like, hey, I'm going to be ready for the 8th. And, I go to a program where, the first couple games when things are good, they allow you to sit in the bullpen, do whatever you need. Second, things start going not as well for, not even just you, but the team. And now everyone's got to sit in the dugout. Relievers weren't allowed to sit in the bullpen. And now it's a situation of, hey, go down there, get hot. And I've got a batter or 2 batters to get hot from standing there in the dugout. And I was bad. I mean, I was going to strike a lot of guys out, but I was going to walk half as many guys as I struck out. And, I went in thinking, hey, they think I could be the highest draft pick in school history. I could be a top 10 round pick here. And I get to, the end of the season. I threw 9 innings in the regular season. I probably had 15 strikeouts, but I've also already had like 8 walks. Go in, play in the Northwoods. They allow seniors to play there after the year. And I go in and I got there beginning of August, like 10 days before the playoffs. So had us start, had you know, a game I relieved, a game that I closed, and the playoff game that I was there, I was first relief, which happened in the second inning. I came in, yeah, they told me, hey, once the starter goes, to be able to save pitch counts and see if you can bounce back for the next game of the playoffs, we're gonna have you in first relief. Well, that didn't work out great because he was out in an inning and a third with the bases loaded. Um, Went 6 2/3, struck out 11, and I threw 95 pitches. My 92nd pitch was the last fastball I threw, was still 92, and I was topping out at like 94 anyways. So, I was able to hold velocity for that long. Got back, started working customer support at TrackMan, and downloaded my data from the last game I played and, posted it on Twitter. Pitching Ninja, the White Sox reached out to Pitching Ninja looking for pitchers that he had seen, and he essentially gave them my Twitter handle. And I showed up at 8 a.m. to my job at TrackMan. I was there probably 5-10 minutes early. Sit down, look down at my phone, and Jake, this is the pitching coordinator for Chicago White Sox. Do you want to sign? Are you ready to throw? So I left that day and, went over to the facility, did all my intakes and everything, and, signed my contract that day to be able to start playing for the White Sox, which, was my childhood favorite team. So, really crazy experience there. I go back to TrackMan in the off season. I signed in September. I was there for like 2 weeks, so I didn't even finish training. Basically go through this off season working at TrackMan, training at Driveline, in the mornings, going to work the night shifts at TrackMan. Was able to throw live against quite a few big leaguers there, thinking, hey, I'm getting all these big leaguers out. I faced extremely high profile guys. One of them's won a few MVPs. But probably shouldn't say that he was training there because orgs at that time didn't want it to, back in like 2021. Well, go into that and I'm like, hey, I'm riding high. I've gotten an MVP out. I've gotten a handful of big leaguers out. There was only one big leaguer that got a hit off me the entire offseason. It was Mark Kana. And I'm thinking, hey, I'm gonna go in, maybe go to high A, or maybe, who knows, I'm 25, maybe start the year in double A, like who knows. Get assigned to double A camp, and I blew up my hamstring like day 2. We were doing the Max Nordics on the Nord board, just the eccentric. Like the second day we were there, third day we were there, I think I had thrown 1 pen. Next day, couldn't touch my knees, couldn't bend over that far. So, I didn't want to tell anybody. And I basically just floss banded my hamstring and beat it with a barbell to the point where I could kind of throw. And I just threw knowing that I can't bend forward. Still sat 91, 93, 11 pitches. The 2 balls I threw were both 0-2. So I was like, hey, I'm all right. I could tell somebody about this. I just can't really move, but I can pitch. And they put me on the shelf for 2 to 2.5 weeks. I essentially missed just about all of spring training. I threw twice live afterwards. Go to extended, get stuck there. Pitching coordinator had never really seen me throw and starts trying to change some things here and there because he didn't think I threw enough strikes. My strike percentage that year was like 70%. But hey, I didn't throw enough. I could throw my sweeper at, probably an 85 or like an 80% clip for strikes. And it was just everything else that wasn't a strike. And when the Dominican catcher only knows the number 1, and that's the worst pitch in my arsenal, but also the one I can't control, didn't work out too well. Went a calendar month without allowing a hit. Had 1 game that, I think I gave up 4 earned in an inning. And ERA went from like a 0.8 to, I don't know, 3 or a 4. And I got released the next outing. And, I went into the office like, hey, went a month without allowing a hit. For all I know, I'm getting called up. This is like beginning August. For all I know, I'm going up to low A or high A. It's the closer, had a .8 ERA through the end of July, and nope. Hey, you proved you can pitch at this level. Good luck. And at that point, I realized, some of the aspects of, hey, you know, the business side of this, seeing who's been called up, who hasn't been called up, guys that are deserving of it, guys that aren't deserving of it, for whatever reason, and seeing that the biggest thing that correlates to who gets the opportunities in some of those situations in pro ball is who they have the most money invested in. And I mean, I signed for a hat, essentially. It was when they started finally paying for apartments that year in 2022. I lived at home with my fiance in Chandler, and they were like, "Oh, well, you're not in our apartments, so sorry, no stipend, nothing." So I was spending as much money on gas as I made to play professional baseball.
What we teach here, Jake. Your story's incredible. You went from all of these different stops, you still believed in yourself, you trusted yourself. People always say, like, Jeremy, what did you hit in 2017? I'm like, I don't know. Exactly 290. Us baseball players know our numbers. And it just goes to show the dedication you gave to this thing. You weren't supposed to be there. All of these schools said no, and you still pushed yourself to do that. And much of transitioning out of playing and building a business or doing these things is the same thing, right? You're taking those skills and you're putting it into you're taking that energy and you're putting it into like something you care just as much about. What is always important for me to pull out of these conversations, number one, thank you for being so honest and like telling your story, because somebody out there is going to listen and go, I'm on my second school, and okay, so I can do the right things and make the right connections, and well, I'm creating an audience online, and that should help, right? And the answer to that is like, yes. How many times have we seen athletes build an audience and it not lead to something? You built an audience, and that audience is helping you with the things that you're doing now, of course, sure, but it helped you sign a professional baseball contract because you're just like, I'm going to post it just for me, right? Or just like as a diary, or just like to get seen, and maybe something will happen, and it did. And so when we talk about, well, what can we do right now? It's make sure that there are people who know the thing that you do very, very well. And yours at the time was throwing a baseball. Still is, if you're still able to do that years later. And I bet you, are you better now? Would you say that like the things that you've learned and the things that you know and the analytics and your shoulder and like the work that you do has led you to be, I think I'm better now. Would you say that's true?
I mean, it's at least extremely close.
Yeah.
My last season playing was 2022. I topped out at 95 like a handful of times. I didn't really train that seriously, trying to start a business. I've got two kids at home. I've got a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old. And the time to train and be dedicated to it, like, just hasn't been there. I would throw, but it was like only live. It was only like live at bats. No bullpen. Wouldn't even play catch for 4 weeks. Hey, these guys are throwing live, or hey, this pitcher's struggling to hit 90, and I think it's just because mentally he won't allow himself to do it. I'm gonna give him competition and try to hit 90 right now. Well, I did that, and it snowballed into the fact that I started throwing even a little bit consistently. But these things that I've learned through coaching, honestly, mainly, has snowballed into, I was up to 94.5 like 2 weeks ago. I'm half a mile to a mile from my all-time high in game, and I just did that without really training. I'm nowhere near as strong as I was when I played. I'm nowhere near as mobile as I was, but I understand the delivery now. I understand how to make those corrections because I've had to help other people make those corrections. And actually, I said it, I think a year and a half ago. when Kenny Serwa out at Tread got signed with the like 88 mile per hour knuckleball. Uh, at the time I could throw one like 84, 85. I was like, hey, I posted a video. Hey, I'm gonna throw the hardest knuckleball in the world. Well, 2 Fridays ago, I threw a knuckleball that didn't register or spin on TrackMan that was 89.9. And it was a strike. That was the crazy part. It was, um, you know, I had an average knuckleball velocity of 88 miles per hour. So I mean, there's things that I'm doing now that are almost the top level that I ever was, and to some degree, with especially with what I'm doing from a coaching perspective, I own a training facility,
Mhm.
and B, what I'm building with Kinebase and the ability to have motion capture data show up within 25 to 30 seconds right now. That's what, I'm starting to look at things and saying, hey, a lot of the throwing that I've had to do over the last few months has really just been testing and accumulating data from, every arm slot for essentially our German developers and the computer vision team to be able to analyze. Well, now I have, a lab grade system that if you wanted to build it on your own would cost you $150,000 to replicate it, or the system that will have way cheaper than that. I have that level of data. I have the knowledge of what to do with the data because I've been coaching using data for the last few years. And I have the training facility. And to some degree, I'm like, hey, maybe I might need to give this another shot. I just need to make sure I've got all the ducks in a row to, make sure that someone can run the facility if I accidentally get back to pro ball. But there's at least been the startings of, working out a little consistently, throwing a little consistently, just in case, who knows, I reach back and grab a 7.
Who knows? The Cardinals or Cubs or maybe a club in town might be like, we could use an arm. Sure. I see owners of independent baseball league teams on LinkedIn all the time saying, we need pitchers. Does anybody need pitchers? So it's not unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, I went out to winter meetings last year, and I went there mainly for Kinebase, and this is when Kinebase was still a concept. We didn't have working software, and I'm out there pitching to agencies and anyone who will kind of remotely listen, and it's like, hey, when you have something to show, cool. But I met a guy there who was he's the manager or the GM for the Martinez Sturgeon in the Pecos League. And he tried to sign me on the spot at winter meetings. I was like, dude, I'm not playing. But I was able to use that connection and take a guy that I had been training who came to us. He went to Utah Valley, then he went like Fresno Pacific, then he came to Justice University. Justice University was a first year baseball program last year, like 16 and 32, like, or 14 and 28. Like, it was you know wouldn't be classified as a great season, but it's the first season the school's ever played baseball.
Mhm.
And me and our head coach built the roster starting in April. So we had from April to July to build a NAIA roster. And you have some pretty solid top end talent and just a very steep drop off because you're dealing with whoever's left available in April and beyond. Well, we had that kid come in and, was able to get that kid a contract and, with Martinez because of the guy I met at winter meetings on accident. And, being able to, hey, now that kid had like a 2.1 ERA and had like a 14 or 15 K per nine, he's got the ability to potentially, escalate his career to move on to a higher league than the Pecos, maybe the Pioneer League next year, maybe the Frontier if we can get a couple things figured out. So, I mean, the beginning question, yeah, I feel like I'm probably, maybe better than I am now, but I'm also able to use connections to help more people because of it.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing. I think that's what you're supposed to do. I think that's like the best part of being in the window like we were. And even though we never made it to the big leagues, like that's okay because we're just as passionate about helping the next generation and like doing the things that like bring us that excitement every single day. Um, and I think like your story helps reinforce the thing that I'm doing too. Because I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then you, okay, build your audience. Okay, then make the connections, because then you can use that for the things that you're doing, and so you can help the people. So you can help leave baseball better than you found it, which is
Mhm.
like my goal in life. Um, what would you tell? And we're going a little over, so I appreciate you. What would you tell 18-year-old Jake about where he is and the steps you took in your journey, so that he knows that on the other side, I think things are going to be okay for
I mean, if you told an 18-year-old Jake thought he was going to be a big leaguer when he threw 85.
him?
So I
Which is
mean
the right mentality to have.
the delusion was there, but the delusion, brought with it that work ethic that, became what I am now and what I'm doing now. Um, I think the big thing that I would say is, find what works for you, find the things that work for you, because hey, one training program, one method of throwing, one method of training isn't going to work for everybody. Do your research, find what's going to work for you, and stick with it. And hey, when things start going bad in some way, or hey, you're not progressing the way you thought it should, if you can inherently have that belief and that trust in it, then stick with it. Don't abandon ship because you're not improving. Your velocity didn't go up, your pitch shape didn't get better for a short window. Continue to stick to the process. I see it all the time with kids that I train. We're inherently, we are so likely to compare ourselves to others. And like they say, comparison's the thief of joy. Well, I've got kids that I train that, hey, I'm 78 to 80. Like I've been 78 to 80 for 6 to 8 weeks now since I started training, but those guys all jumped up 2 to 4 miles per hour. Like, why am I not? And it's like, well, you had major things you had to redo to continue pushing down the path. Like, here's the light at the end of the tunnel. This is what success looks like. Continue to pursue that. And the ones that do that are going to find at least that next level of success, whatever that might be for them. It's not going to be professional baseball for all of us. It's not going to be affiliated baseball for all of us. It's not going to be big leagues for all of us. But whatever that is, like, I'm a believer that just about anybody has the potential to, train themselves enough to become that caliber of athlete. It's just how much time it takes and how much effort and like and how many things you have to overcome. Some people could probably roll out of bed and hey, that's a professional athlete, right? I mean, those guys signed in the first round. And actually not entirely all of them, because the other half of the first round is guys that were really really good and became obsessed. Like, I mean, I can't remember which Lombard it was. Was it Jacob this year in the first round? But there's a video that he put out where he was a soccer player until like high school, and then he saw his brother starting to get recruited, and he's like, "Huh, I want to do that." And he said that their dad had to like pull them off the field, like pull them out of training, doing the little monotonous things of like just their glove work. Had to pull them out of the cage, out of the weight room. And when you have that level of dedication to do beyond just hey, what you're doing from your practice, that's what it takes. If I could tell anything to 18-year-old me, it would be find what success looks like to you. Do your research and find something that you believe in to help you get to that, and stay the course no matter what, like what little blips happen along the way,
Mhm.
stay the course and allow yourself to continue to pursue that. Um, you know, I probably also would have said to pay a little bit more attention in college, and in certain classes. I have a bachelor's in entrepreneurial management, a master's in sport management, and an MBA in marketing. And the MBA in marketing, all I know is that I have an MBA in marketing. Um, I mean, the the head of the program told us day one that it's an MBA program, it's a master's program. GPA doesn't matter unless you want to become a doctor, or get a doctorate. And I heard that and went, all right. I mean, I was a 4.5 student in high school. I could, you know, close my eyes, fall asleep in class, and just roll out of bed and take the test and ace it. And I heard that and went,
Okay.
well, I'm going to try to learn what's on the exam the day before the exam, and just hold it for 24-hour window, and then I'll forget it the day afterwards. And I essentially did that through an entire MBA program. And there's probably some things there that in what I'm trying to do with Kinebase could probably help a little bit more. Being able to get that out to people, to use my platform to be able to get that out. Um, there's probably areas where building some of those habits early on
Mhm.
would have helped what I'm doing now. Um, but yeah, I mean that's the big thing that I would tell.
Yeah. I I think it's well, good on you for being able to get out of bed and take a test. Like I was never like that. I was like, okay, I got to study for weeks in advance. I got to do all the things, and then maybe I'll get a B. I appreciate you for being here and sharing your story. And there's a kid out there who's a lot like Jake, who's gonna be like, okay, let me maximize my window. Let me maximize my effort. Let me do the things I need to do to get to the next level. And for me, my career, I got drafted by the New York Mets, my childhood team too. I played 2 years, got injured, got released, was on another team, qualified for the Olympics, and I've done the other things I want to do in baseball. And for me, my career was like an absolute success. And I would say to you, I hope you see your career as a success. Whether or not you wanted to get the big leagues or you're like big leagues or bust or whatever, your career has been a success for you so far. And there's more that we get to see from you as you continue to do these things. Um, and so that's going to be exciting for us. So I would love the opportunity to like obviously stay in touch. We're in the same city. Like shout out Phoenix.
Yeah.
We're also in PAC, professional athlete community together, which is how we got connected. And it's cool to just get connected with somebody like 5 miles away.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's stay in touch and let's bring you back and check in with you as you continue to do the things that you're doing in baseball, which I think is exactly what this community needs.
Yeah, and I mean the one thing I would add to that, in what I'm doing with Base, like obviously right now I'm building a lab grade solution. It's going to start with colleges, facilities,
Mhm.
places like that. Uh, but eventually, because we track the bat and the ball and all the body inputs, where I want to go with that is even an iPhone version to where the kid that's in his garage with his dad that doesn't have access to coaches, that wants information that you'd have to fly to somewhere that's got a lab to do. The goal is to be able to provide that eventually to the fingertips of a dad with his kid and be able to say, hey, these are what you've done from a biomechanical perspective, from a force production perspective, postural perspective, outcome perspective. And, here's the areas that you need to improve. Because, I think playing was one thing, it's very few people that can truly make like an impact as a player, right? You look at people that make an impact, it's, your perennial all stars. Like those are the ones that have the biggest impact from a playing perspective, nothing else. I think, you know, in our situations, even looking back at, more than baseball, kind of where you started. And the T-shirt that I had from it, where it was the minor leaguers deserve major raises. The impacts that we can have to further the game, to further where everything is going. You know, it's only a couple people that are going to do that as players, but anybody that wants to can find a way to make their positive impact on the game, to make their impact on the future of the sport, whether that's for people who are kids right now, people who are in college. So that's the area that I'm trying to make my mark on baseball. Obviously with cannabis, there's potential for us to go softball, whatever,
Yeah.
do other things down the road. But where I'm trying to make my mark is, how we advance the game. Can I help predict injuries because we're able to predict joint stress and muscle activation?
Mhm.
Can I help maximize performance or start telling people, hey, you need to be able to create more power through this, through your lead leg, and you need a strengthening program to do that. Here's things to do that. Being able to make my mark in that way. And that's what I think, some of the questions that you've asked, like, hey, and even another one is, what does success look like now after the career? And I think it's being able to further advance the game of baseball,
Mm.
further, a few kids' careers, help kids that probably shouldn't have been able to play college baseball play college baseball, help kids that, would have just been really good talents, or kids that are really good talents and, maybe don't have it mentally together to become professional players. Help them learn and understand the struggles, the things that it takes, and what you really have to do from all around, not just how you practice, but how you take care of your body, how you prepare on a daily basis, and help those kids get to whatever that next thing is for them.
Mhm.
I think that's the area that we can truly make an impact, is being able to further where the game goes in any way, shape, or form on any scale.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I couldn't have said it better myself, and that is like the beauty of baseball is we could still. I get to coach varsity baseball this year at Chaparral. Go Birds! My alma mater. I'm just excited to like be in a dugout and be teaching again. And the
Yeah.
thing that I love to teach is baseball, and I'm very fortunate for that. And you get to do that every single day at your own facility, and that is like the open athletes thing is take the thing that you love the most and turn it into something that you get to do every day, because the best parts of it are gonna be lasting and worthwhile. So we could go for hours on
Oh
that,
yeah.
and we probably will over time. But I appreciate you, and just very grateful that we've been able to connect through all of this. Shout out Pack, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Awesome.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Wow, 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 wow. See, this is where I need a commercial. Because I need to just take a breath before we get into federal investigations and ownerships and billions of dollars. Jake, who we just met, I just met a couple weeks ago through Pack, and the thing that he's doing is the thing that I want to be doing. I want a facility. I want an app that helps baseball players. That's fun. And I get to see that, the work that he's putting in to do that, the work that he put in to get there. It's really impressive to meet somebody who gave it everything and went from place to place to place to place to then somebody saw him on Twitter and he signed a professional baseball contract. And yeah, some would say it did work out. He played professional baseball. Some would say it didn't work out because he didn't get further along. I would say anytime you have an opportunity to play at that level, that is what you strive for. Even though you want to be a major leaguer. I've had major leaguers who were like, my career was a failure because I wanted to be an all-star. And I've met all-stars that are like, I never won an MVP. And I've met MVPs that have been like, I wasn't a Hall of Famer. Because I asked that question to everybody, was your career a success? And they'll say, well, there was this goal. And that's what makes them great, right? They have this goal. And they're going to do everything they possibly can to get to that goal. And if they don't reach that goal, they see it as a failure. Where I think Jake's career is an absolute success. And look what he's done with the fact that he loves baseball. He loves pitching. He knows his stats from 10 years ago. That's what a guy who loves the sport, loves the thing that they do, does. And so there's a lot that you can learn from somebody who's like, I'm going to give it everything I possibly could, and like was in the window, like created the opportunity to be in the window by doing exactly this. By doing the thing that you can do. Put your highlights on. He didn't care what people were saying or the comments that he got or whatever. He kept doing it. And somebody saw it. And somebody gave him a professional baseball contract because he was good enough to play at that level. And sometimes athletes get overlooked. But he ended up being in the same room as everybody else because he trusted himself to continue doing it. And that's why I asked, like, could you still do it? And he's still touching 94. 4 years after his professional career ended. I don't know, he's probably a little younger than me. So maybe he's 27, 28. It's not unheard of. I mean, baseball, they're looking for pitchers all the time. It's not unheard of for him to get a call one day. Who knows? NCAA might let him back in and play. That's a successful career. I don't give a shit how much money he's making. It doesn't matter. He comes to work every day at a facility he started, doing a thing that he loves doing, saw an opportunity to create something more easily accessible of a tool as TrackMan, all of the data analytics, whatever. Saw an opportunity, is pursuing that opportunity, has the facility, coaches, does this stuff with this NAIA program. What more can you ask for in a baseball career? Doesn't matter. He's got 2 kids and a family, and he works with his dad every day. Find me a better example of the thing that Open Athletes does than that. So shout out, Jake. Like, thanks for coming on. We're going to keep having you on because I think the thing that you're doing is the thing that you need to be doing in your window, in your time, the leverage that you have. And former professional baseball player doing all of this, starting this facility, has this company, goes to winter meetings, has the contacts building the network, has the connections, plus part of professional athlete community, PAC. Like, what's he not doing? So shout out Jake, man. That's what you have to do. For guys like us. For other guys, it's like, yeah, they made $1 million and they play in the big leagues and they like can do all these other things after because they like have the capital and the resources and the cultural cachet to like put your name on something and have like opportunities. But some of us don't have that. And we have to like continue to chip away to get to a place where like we want to get to. I'm a former professional athlete. Like, I have goals with this and our community and the things that we are doing, but I understand that like I can't live and die by the goals. I'm so excited to like come on and have this conversation every single day because like I love doing that. He's going to work every single day doing the thing that he loves to do. And like, that is the value of this community and this show and this conversation. That's why the thing that we're doing, all of us, Jake, Tate, we're going to have Nikki on over the next couple of weeks. She's building a mental health app. Doesn't matter that there's other mental health apps. Nikki's never done one. Nikki's voice is different. Doesn't matter that there are other live shows about whatever. I've never done one. This is my voice. You have a voice to do the things that you want to do. That's what makes the thing that we're doing like so much fun and so exciting because there really is no goal. That's the goal, is to show you what Jake's doing. I'm doing it. What other goals are there? If there are other Jakes who are like, yeah, I want to start a business, come to Open Athletes. We can do that right now and help you start that business. That's the goal, and we're doing the goal. So it's not this. I mean, yeah, I want 1,000 athletes, and I want 40,000 people in an audience every day, and blah, blah, blah. But like, yeah, like you could strive for that. But the fact that I'm already achieving the goal that I set out to achieve with this, and we're 3 weeks in. And Jake has goals for the things that he's doing, and as when we realize that we're in the middle of the goal, it makes it more fun. It makes it easier. It takes the pressure off of, I gotta reach all these things. And sometimes we gotta do to keep the lights on. I run this for just time, $0. But I do it because I love it. I do it because we could talk about the things that we need to talk about, and that is segue. The Los Angeles Dodgers owner, Mark Walter. We have to talk about it. We have to. We cannot talk about stories in sport without talking about Mark Walter and Guggenheim, TWG, because it touches everything that we discuss every single day. And so we have to fully understand. I did this really as an exercise for me, but I'm going to share with you the things that I learned. To start, Mark Walter has not been charged with any crime, full stop. Investigations can and do end with no charges. Let's say that one more time. Mark Walter has not been charged with any crime. FBI took his laptop and his phone. Doesn't mean he's charged with a crime. Investigations can and do end with no charges. Okay? So we're not accusing anybody of anything. I am sharing with you the reporting that has been done by Jeff Passan and ESPN, Bloomberg, Forbes, New York Times. There's really good reporting on this because it's a business story, it's a sports story, and it touches on business as an asset, sport franchise as an asset. And that's important. That's a conversation that we have to have on our show because it's the show about business, the intersection between business, technology, policy, labor, entrepreneurship. So we have to talk about it because it ties into all of these things. We're also going to talk about the 2014 lawsuit a bit with Mark Walter and the organization and whistleblower complaints and all these things. It's a civil complaint. It's language, cash machine, over $1 billion in policyholder funds. Like, again, from the reporting, it's an allegation, like from that original complaint and like recent news that has been done and reporting that has been gathered on this. None of it has been proven like in court. Like there has been no, so some of this stuff is like alleged. Some of it is like part of reporting. The original complaint was withdrawn the day after filing, dismissed without prejudice, and per the forensic accountant who built it, later settled. When you quote it, when we quote these things, we have to say alleged because we're not accusing anybody of anything. We're just reporting what we are sharing with you, what has been reported. Okay, that's my disclosure. TWG Global, TWG, like it's not the Walter Group, something Walter, something. But they part own Guggenheim, and Guggenheim is like the thing that owns other things, and TWG owns other things. Their public position, per reporting, is that it is cooperating with authorities, and there's no reporting that says otherwise. They are confident that matters will resolve favorably, right? So the thing to note, full disclaimer, and like when we're having conversations is on the record, I have to say it. We are not lawyers or financial advisors. We're reading the public record and reported facts and telling you why it matters, like to our audience and to our conversation. Anything we're guessing at, I will say when I am guessing at something. Full disclosure. And so today, like, we're doing something we've never done before. We always do a bunch of different topics, what's going on in sport. Today on a Wednesday, early in the morning, we're going to do our one story. Because it's the biggest story in sport and sport business right now, and business right now. It's not a trade or a contract. It's a question about where the money to buy players, to buy teams, where it's coming from. The man at the center owns the Dodgers. He bought the Lakers last year and is already selling them for a record $12.5 billion. When he bought the Dodgers for $2 billion, it was the largest sale of a professional sports team, I think, ever. At $2 billion. 6, 7, maybe a little bit longer. Not 10 years ago, but a little bit less. He then bought the Lakers and is selling them for a record $12.5 billion. Bought the Dodgers for $2 billion. Would you say the Dodgers are worth $2 billion right now? No, of course not. They're worth more than the Padres. They would have to be. Number one, because of the local TV contract. The value of a local TV contract in a market like Los Angeles. A global brand because of Shohei, like the Dodgers, and other reasons like the Dodgers. Whew. So excited. He owns a piece of Chelsea and is reportedly heading for the exit there too. Mark Walter is under federal investigation and looking at the insurance companies he controls and how billions of dollars in loans to and from his businesses were labeled. He has not been charged with anything. Full stop. So on our quick hits today, who Mark Walter actually is, how big this empire got, how insurance money quietly became the fuel for sports franchises, why the Dodgers you watch win every year sit at the top of a financial structure almost nobody outside of Wall Street understands, the federal probe, the phone the FBI took off his plane, and the December math he's racing against, and the part that should scare you even if you never watch a Dodgers game, whose money is actually underneath all of it. So, Mark Walter is the CEO of Guggenheim Partners and of TWG Global, the holding company over his sports teams, his AI bets, and importantly, his insurance companies. Per Bloomberg, Guggenheim's money management arm oversees about $362 billion. Read that one more time. $362 billion. Okay? Per Bloomberg, on July 20th, federal prosecutors in Manhattan and the SEC are investigating two of Walter's insurers, Delaware Life and Clearspring, and Guggenheim. It's an investigation, no charges. TWG says it's cooperating and confident it resolves in its favor. Per Bloomberg and Crane's Chicago business. Last September, FBI agents executed a search warrant on Walter's private plane at Chicago Midway and seized his phone and laptop. An owner of the Dodgers and the Lakers and the Feds are were boarded a jet. Per reporting on its restated 2025 financials, Delaware Life said its affiliated investments were about 42% of its invested assets. The number it had originally stated was about 3%. 3 to 42 is not a rounding error, and that's kind of the story, okay? While all this was happening, Walter agreed to sell the Lakers for a record $12.5 billion 10 months after he purchased it for $10 billion from, I think, just the Buss family. I don't think there was an intermediary. It was owned for 42 years by the Buss family. Then this guy bought it, had it for 10 months, and just flipped it. Per the Financial Times, he's in talks to also sell his Chelsea stake too. Todd Boehly, who's also a part of Guggenheim with him, also owns parts of Chelsea and I think a professional football team. I cannot think off the top of my head. Maybe I have it in the writing. So whose money is it? Well, he's moved from one thing to the other. And he owns the company that owns them. So who's Mark Walter? Which I think the reporting is doing a good job of. One man, the Dodgers, the Lakers, Chelsea, Cadillac F1, the National Wiz Hockey League, $362 billion of assets under management. Most fans know the team and have never even heard of Mark Walter. Mark Walter is a Chicago financier, and in 2012, a group he led bought the Los Angeles Dodgers out of bankruptcy. Okay, 14 years ago. They bought it for $2.15 billion. I thought it was less than 10. It's more than 10. My bad. In 2012, a group he led bought the Los Angeles Dodgers out of bankruptcy for $2.15 billion, a record at the time. And everyone said he overpaid. He did not overpay, and we're going to get to why. Per Bloomberg and Front Office Sports, Walter is CEO of Guggenheim Partners and of TWG Global, the holding company that sits over his sports assets, AI Ventures, and insurance companies. Per Bloomberg's reporting, since he bought the Dodgers, Guggenheim's assets under management have grown to roughly $362 billion. Public reporting also states that beyond the Dodgers, Walter's sports portfolio has included the Lakers, the LA Sparks, a stake in Chelsea Football Club, the founding of the Women's Professional Hockey League, and interest tied to F1, IndyCar, and NASCAR. Forbes and NBC also report he bought the Lakers at around $10 billion late in 2025 and agreed to sell for $12.5 billion. We've said this before. So this is not a hobby owner. This is one of the largest asset managers in the country who also happens to own a chunk of every single thing you see in sport. And the two things, the money business, and the sports business are not in separate boxes. That's the entire point of why we need to talk about it in such detail today. They are wired together, and the wire runs through the insurance companies that he owns. He didn't buy a baseball team with baseball money. He built a machine, a money-making and money-printing machine. And the teams are the shiny parts of what he gets to do with that money. And notice the shape of the empire. Empire, it really is. Before we even get to the trouble part, Walter didn't get rich being famous. He got rich owning the thing underneath the famous thing. The fancy Shohei Ohtani, Walter owns the balance sheet Ohtani stands on. The $700 million guaranteed contract that Shohei is being paid $2 million for this year with $640 million of deferred money. Freddie Freeman's got deferred money, I think. Mookie Betts has deferred money, I think. So he's doing all this. This guy's not dumb, right? And he's playing by the rules. And everyone's saying, well, everybody in Major League Baseball is like, let's have a salary cap. Look at the Dodgers. We're going to limit what the Dodgers are able to do. But the Dodgers are doing things that other teams aren't even doing. Before we go deeper, did you even know the same guy owned the Dodgers and the Lakers and part of Chelsea and Cadillac F1 and teams in IndyCar and NASCAR and the National Women's Hockey League? Because the invisibility is part of how this works. The less you know of Guggenheim, TWG Global, Mark Walter himself, the more freedom him and his team, the companies have to operate. Okay, so the machine. Which we need to get to so that you can actually have these conversations with, I had it with my barber yesterday. Shout out Terrence and the cut on Elliott Road in Ahwatukee Chandler. We have to be able to understand the things that are happening here. Here's how life insurance and annuities are supposed to work. You pay premiums. Grandma pays into an annuity for 30 years. So she gets a check every month when she retires. The insurance company is sitting on a giant pile of that premium cash. And it doesn't just leave it in a drawer, it invests it historically in boring, safe stuff like bonds. Because someday it has to pay grandma. There has to be liquid on the other end. Traditionally, it should be dollar for dollar to pay grandma, and the one job is to be able to pay grandma. She's paying a premium now for the ability to have money later. Let me repeat that. because I work in insurance. Annuities are stuff old people get, maybe a little bit younger. They pay a premium, and then once they retire, they reach a certain place at a certain age, they get money back. I'm trying to get you to some reporting that was done to show on screen, but I can't find it. It's per a June 2026 Wharton study by Amy Huber and co-authors. Private equity-owned insurers had about 60.8% of their 2024 structured security investments issued by affiliated entities versus about 1.7% for other insurers. So I wanted to dive further into that. I have so many tabs open to cover this. Yes. Buying from the family, private equity owned insurers and their affiliated investments. We love SSRN, future sponsor of the show, I hope. Private equity firms increasingly own insurers as direct subsidiaries. This ownership places insurers within organizations that also originate, manage, and scrutinize credit assets. We study whether and on what terms insurers directly owned by PE firms providing financing to affiliated credited businesses. I was able to get into it for some of our research today, and it's been cited elsewhere for the other things that are happening, but this is part of the conversation, right? Private equity firms like Guggenheim, are using these insurance companies to circulate money. And to put that money, they need to invest that money, and they're putting the money into what is a thing that we've talked about that doesn't go down in value. Sports teams. Per the study, which I did not have open, just the abstract, when buying the same security on the same day, PE-owned issuers paid systematically higher prices to affiliated insurers, implying more favorable terms for those issuers. Per Bloomberg, Manhattan prosecutors are examining whether Delaware Life and ClearSpring failed to disclose that billions in private credit holdings backed other parts of Walter's businesses. That's the most important part. Manhattan prosecutors are examining whether Delaware Life and ClearSpring failed to disclose that billions in private credit holdings backed other parts of Walter's businesses. That's what all of this hinges on. 42% of invested assets, up from roughly 3% originally stated. Here's the thing you have to understand, and I want to be fair about the thing that we're talking about. An affiliated investment is not automatically bad, and it is not illegal. Insurance companies invest in related businesses all the time. The reported problem in this case is not he invested in his own stuff. The reported problem is disclosure and whether it was labeled truthfully. So why does the label matter so much? So let me give you the cleanest version that I know, that I can pull out, that I can see. This is from Jeff Passan's reporting with Tom Gober, a forensic accountant who has worked these cases for 40 plus years, who was part of the original 2014 claim class action suit against Mark Walter, but I think broadly Guggenheim and TWG Global. If two totally separate companies do a deal, you can trust the price is fair because each side is looking out for itself. But if Mark Walter in one chair is doing a deal with Mark Walter in the other chair, he can set whatever terms he wants. So the regulators say, fine, you can do that, but you have to disclose it so somebody can check that the deal was fair. If you hide that affiliation and nobody can check, that's part of the problem. Who's doing the enforcing? Where are the rules? Are people following the rules? Many of the banks, this is in line with, they're not exactly what we saw in 2008. In 2008, banks were over leveraging and over lending money out to people to buy homes. Mortgage crisis, CBOs. That's not happening as much, I would hope. because they are being policed and enforced so that that doesn't happen again from financial and fiduciarily backed institutions like banks. But the comparison that I'm drawing is private equity firms are taking money and putting it into assets without the disclosures in the case that we're seeing that should have been in place. And so who's enforcing it? Well, now is there going to be enforcement if there was actually something on the back end that is seen to be or deemed to be nefarious? And we haven't seen the final reporting from anybody. The leagues are not getting involved. They're just sort of waiting and seeing what happens. They're not punishing anybody. We have to wait until what the federal government or the federal investigation says. But what I'm seeing, see what's being done. If he didn't need the money, he's not selling the Lakers for $12.5 billion a year after he bought it. You don't do that if nothing's the problem. Reporting is happening about whether or not they're going to sell their stake in Chelsea. Reporting is happening on whether or not they're going to sell their stake in the Dodgers. The crime, if there is one, hasn't been one. All of this is reporting and investigative journalism and forensic accounting. If there is one, it isn't self-dealing, it's doing it with the lights off. And this is where the past shows up. In 2014, 2 annuity holders filed a civil complaint against Walters Insurance conglomerates. The complaint alleged, according from the complaint, not stating a fact, that the group used the Guggenheim insurers as a cash machine to buy the most expensive sports franchise in the world. I'm sorry, let me read that again. Use the Guggenheim insurers as a cash machine to buy the most expensive sports franchise in world history. The Los Angeles Dodgers with over $1 billion in policyholder funds. That was the alleged complaint from 2014 from annuity holders saying, quote, the group used the Guggenheim insurers as a cash machine to buy the most expensive sports franchise in the world in its history. The Los Angeles Dodgers with over $1 billion in policyholder funds. The case was withdrawn. The day after it was filed, dismissed without prejudice, and per Gober, it later settled. Nothing was proven in court. 12 years later, federal investigators are reportedly asking about the same thing, affiliated money and whether it was disclosed. Every insurer invests in float. Warren Buffett built Berkshire Hathaway on insurance float. So what's the honest line between smart use of float and a problem? The problem is disclosure. Now, the Dodgers. The best run money machine in American sports. Purchased 2012, 14 years ago. For 2.15, sorry. I don't have it in front of me, right? 2.1 whatever billion dollars. At the time, the most ever for a sports franchise, and now sports franchises 12 years later are being, the numbers are astronomically larger. Okay? They're also incredibly well run as a baseball organization. They have always had a strong minor league program, a strong farm system. They have always traded for, brought up the right players, made the right decisions. There were stretches in the early 2000s, that they weren't competing at the highest level, but over the last 15 years, like, name a team that's been more successful. And you could say, it's due in large part because of the money that they're able to spend different than other teams. And that's totally fair. But they're spending the most money and doing it the best. The Yankees could spend better and could do better, but they're not. They're not competing at the same level as the Dodgers. It's the only one that's comparable, and the Dodgers, and the amount of money that they're making, and the amount of winning that they're doing is dwarfing other teams. So I'm not telling you that the Dodgers payroll is illegal money at all. Nobody has shown that. The Dodgers are a spectacular standalone business in themselves. They made $1 billion last year. I'm giving you what I know and what I've learned and what I see and letting you ask your own questions. Per long-standing reporting on the 2013 deal, the Dodgers' local TV contract with Time Warner Cable was worth about $8.35 billion over 25 years, the richest local rights deal in the sport. Per that reporting and our own prior coverage, a bankruptcy court quirk let the Dodgers pay revenue sharing on a far lower TV valuation early on. An advantage rival teams estimated has saved them hundreds of millions of dollars over the lifetime value of the deal. Per the Financial Times and the Mispriced Assets Substack, which is fantastic, roughly $1.5 billion of debt tied to the Dodgers TV network, Sportsnet LA, via a company the Dodgers created, has been held by insurance companies connected to members of the Dodgers ownership group, including Delaware Life and ClearSpring. Per the reported terms of Shohei Ohtani's December 2023 contract, $700 million over 10 years with $680 million deferred and paid later. So the Dodgers pay him about $2 million in cash per year during the deal. The connected lines, just with the evidence. Thought one, the Dodgers built a company to run their TV network and it issued about $500 million $1.5 billion in debt. Dot two, a big chunk of that debt is held by insurance companies affiliated with the ownership group. That is reported, and affiliated debt is legal. What I can't tell you, because nobody has the receipts publicly, is how much of the Dodgers' recorded payroll traces to that money. We don't make one-for-one links. I don't make one-for-one links. We can't prove that. We can't prove that the amount of money that the Dodgers are paying, we can't connect the dollars that way because we just don't have the ability to do that. No reporting has shown the ability to do that. Now the deferrals, because this is part that's genuinely clever. It is clever and genuinely worth understanding. Ohtani's deal is $700 million, but $680 million is pushed years down the road. We talked about this with Dr. Tingle the other day. Okay, they're pushing it down the road. What if they don't have that money? They might. They probably will. The Dodgers pay almost nothing in cash today and promise a mountain later. And that's not cheating. They're within the rules of what Major League Baseball allows teams to pay their players. Bobby Bonilla, it makes $1 million a year over 25 years from the New York Mets, or 30 years, or whatever it is. It moves the bill. It moves what's due further into the future. The Dodgers didn't just sign the best player ever. They financed him like a house. And here's the question that actually matters for today's story. Whose money is it? A promise to pay somebody hundreds of millions in the 2030s is only as good as the company making the promise. So if you're an annuity holder whose money is tangled up in the same universe of affiliated bets, you might reasonably ask the same question a Dodgers fan should ask about a deferral. Will the money actually be there when the bill comes due? Does it matter? Does any of this matter? It's my question to you. Dodgers are winning World Series. So does it matter? Are the Dodgers a genius operation that everybody else is too timid to copy? Or a team playing a financial game no one else can play? Other teams could be more aggressive, right? Other teams own their own TV network to go direct to their fans. What the Dodgers are doing, other teams are not able to do because of how favorable The debt in the local TV contract has been for the Dodgers that allows them to not share the totality of what's earned as other teams do, but a percentage of that. Does that mean that he should be in trouble because the insurance companies are doing whatever? No, I mean, like, this is like the business of the Dodgers. But they all tie together because all of the same companies own each other. The Dodgers make more and share less than the rest of the teams in baseball. And from the reporting that I've seen, it's not even close. The part that broke this whole thing into the open, the part that broke this whole thing into the open this summer, and nobody's been charged. Per Bloomberg, federal prosecutors in Manhattan and the SEC are investigating Guggenheim and two Walter-controlled insurers, Delaware Life and Clearspring, over how affiliated loans were disclosed. Per Bloomberg and Crane Chicago Business, as we read earlier, the FBI executed. You try to read this much. The FBI executed a search warrant and seized Walter's phone and laptop from his private plane in Chicago Midway. Delaware Life and Clearspring received grand jury subpoenas in February. Per reporting, the transactions under scrutiny involve a pool of roughly $16 to $20 billion in loans the two insurers extended to businesses connected to Walter or TWG Global. Per Yahoo Finance and CNBC, TWG Global agreed to buy up to $6.5 billion in affiliated assets from Delaware Life, swapping in unaffiliated assets, and hired a former Goldman Sachs and DOJ veteran David Markowitz as its top lawyer. Money math to plain English. Walter's insurers are reportedly carrying something like $20 billion in loans to his own world, the world that we inhabit, and the regulators, the enforcers, are unhappy about that. To fix it, that money has to be swapped out for money from companies he doesn't control. That's what the $6.5 billion Delaware Life swap is. It's the start of unwinding. This is a margin call with a scoreboard. Replace the family money with stranger money. And it's on a clock. And now, look at the sports moves in that light. Per Bloomberg and CNBC, we talked about it, he obviously agreed to sell the Lakers for a record $12.5 billion about 10 months after buying them, clearing a reported profit around $2.5 billion. He's in talks to sell Chelsea. Nobody has said the team sales are because of the probe. I'm not saying that. Legally. Alleged. Walter says the Dodgers are not for sale. But when the man with the best seats in sports starts selling the right as he needs, billions in clean cash, in my view, you're at least allowed to ask why. And that's what we're doing. We're asking why. The market is asking. Per S&P Global, Delaware Life's outlook was cut to negative. Per reporting, some of the debt tied to the universe has been traded down hard as investors got nervous. Nervous is not guilty. Prices move on fear, not verdicts. Sometimes verdicts. But the smart money is watching this like a hawk, and that tells you it's real. If you're Walter's crisis communications person today, what's your move? Sell fast and quiet, or plant your feet and fight? Because those are two totally different strategies, and he seems to be doing a little of both. The systematic question, this isn't really about baseball. It's grandma's annuity, offshore reinsurance, and who's watching. That part has nothing to do with sports. We talked about how the Dodgers were run, how they're doing things that other teams aren't able and capable of doing. We did not say that it's because of this mess. It is a mess. You don't sell the Lakers after a year after buying them. If it's not a mess, it's a mess. It's messy. If nothing happens from this, he doesn't get in trouble. Fine, he doesn't get in trouble, but he's already sold the Lakers. So we have to touch on what the Dodgers are doing and why the Dodgers are so lucrative, because that's part of his empire. An empire we care a lot about because we love sports. And we love the businesses that he owns. We love them. If this were just about one rich guy and one baseball team, it'd be gossip, but it's bigger than that. I'm sure he's a nice guy. This is not about that. We're analyzing the way that it affects us as sports fans. Per the Wharton study I touched on earlier, and industry reporting, private equity moving into life insurance and annuities is a broad, industry-wide shift and not a single company's story. Affiliated investing across PE-owned insurers has grown sharply. Per longtime forensic accountant Tom Gober that we mentioned earlier, a large share of certain reinsurance today is internal, moving risk to affiliated companies, sometimes through captives in place like Vermont or offshore, where outsiders cannot see the other end of the deal. After 2028, Dodd-Frank, the law passed after 2028, briefly let regulators designate big insurers as systematically important, but a legal challenge, the MetLife case, rolled much of that oversight back. Per Gober's public comments, much of what we've seen from his appearance on Jeff Passan's podcast, and his view, the ultimate responsibility sits with state insurance regulators whose job is to protect the policyholders, not the insurers. So here's why you, a person who may never buy an annuity, should still care. The money underneath these bets belongs to regular people, retirees, somebody's grandma who bought a policy so she'd have a check at 80. When that money quietly gets moved into riskier, harder to see places, the person taking the risk often doesn't know they're taking it. I'm not saying anyone's pension is about to vanish. I'm saying the whole point of insurance is to get rid of risk. That's why you pay a premium. And the reported worry is that some of that risk got quietly handed back to the people who paid to be rid of it. The scariest sentence in finance, the person carrying the risk doesn't know they're carrying it. And this is the honest, uncomfortable ending to the news part of our show. A show we had to talk on. I couldn't just do 5 minutes on this. We don't know how this resolves. Walter hasn't been charged. TWG says it's cooperating. It may all get unwound cleanly and the Dodgers keep winning and nobody's grandma ever feels a thing. That's real, and I hope that happens. But the reason this is the biggest story in sports is that same structure that may have helped buy the most valuable team on earth also runs through the retirement accounts of millions of people who have never heard of Mark Walter. That's not a sports story. That's an everybody story. Is this a Mark Walter problem? Is it a whole industry problem? Is it a TWG, PE, Guggenheim problem? So whose money is it? Forensic accounting, annuities. Now you're an expert. You know more than 99% of people. Every story today was a version of that question. Whose money bought the Dodgers and Lakers and Cadillac F1 and a part of Chelsea and the National Women's Hockey League? Whose money is in the TV debt? We had to talk about the TV contract. It's why the Dodgers can spend so much and defer so much. Whose money backs those deferrals? Whose money is the FBI asking about? And the reason it's the sharpest question in business is that the answer is almost never on the label. We almost never know. Every deal has two numbers, the headline and the truth. We said it all the time. We say it every single day on the show. The Dodgers cost $2.15 billion. That's the headline. The truth is a machine of affiliated loans and TV debt and deferred hundreds of millions that most people never saw coming, that people will see in the 2030s. These ball players that deferred their contracts so that there's more liquid cash up front to buy teams now. Where's that money coming from? To be fair, most of that is legal, and some of the smartest investors alive use float this way. The problem, reportedly, allegedly, investigatedly, is the label. So here's the part that's about you. The reason I do this show from zero every single day, you are going to be handed money your whole career. Signing bonuses, endorsement checks, investment opportunities, you the athlete. From a guy who knows a guy. Are you going to take the tempted money and the headline number and say yes? Or are we going to say whose money is this and what does it want? Because money is never just money. It comes with terms. Read the term sheet. Talk about that all the time. When somebody offers you a check, they're offering you a structure. And the structure is where you win or lose. Is it your equity or a loan you have to pay back? Is it clean money, or is it tangled into 5 other things that you can't see? If it blows up over here, does it take you down over there? The people who get wrecked in business almost never get wrecked by the headline. They get wrecked by the part of the deal that they didn't read. Nobody ever went broke reading the term sheet. Well, they might have if it's a bad term sheet, bad deal. Plenty go broke reading just the headline, metaphorically. Transparency is what you should seek. It's how you should do business. Everything should be transparent. Nah, I mean, obviously not everything. People are going to be like, well, not everything should be transparent. No. Transparency builds trust. And right now, do we trust the things that are happening? Do we trust why there's so much money moving into sports? Not the amount. It's the fact that you could see all the way through the things that I was doing. We were always saying, as a nonprofit with More Than Baseball, we raised money for baseball players. We talked about with Jake earlier. We could account for all of it. That was our number one priority. Major League Baseball, Major League Baseball Players Association, Major League Baseball players trusted us with their money that they worked their entire lives for. And the one thing that we promised was transparency, and we gave them that, and that is the trust that you get to earn in the marketplace. Wasn't the amount. I've seen an account that we helped own and start, More Than Baseball, 2 commas in it. It was just a line, and it took me back. Wow. We did that, and now we get to be transparent with what that money is doing, because we're a nonprofit, and we get to give it back to guys who deserve it. And they trusted us, and the league trusted us. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. If you listen to me once or every day, you'll be like, that's not the smartest guy in the room. No. But I learned early that money you can't explain is the money that eventually explains you. Put another way, if people can't trust you, and if you can't be transparent with them, or if they can't know exactly where you stand 100% of the time, that's a problem. Why is that important? Because we have an audience of athletes who want to start businesses. And what's the most important thing? Being open, honest, and transparent about the work that you're doing, what the money is doing, where they're paying you to do stuff. That's the most important thing, is trust. I'm as honest and as authentic as I can be. The counterpoint to all this is because I promised honesty and not hype. Just ask whose money is it? It's easy for me to say from my desk. When you're a broke minor leaguer or a rookie with your first real check, you take the money and you ask questions later. Obviously, you know it's coming from your employer, and your employer makes billions of dollars a year. Because you need to eat. But the pros, the people at the very tippity top, the 0.01% of the 0.01%, the Mark Walters of the world, they think about the structure first and the headline second, and that's not a coincidence. That's the whole game. When the smart money obsesses over structure, then you, the athlete, who I'm talking to in our audience, people building a business or people in sports, should too. Your job is to find the truth. Your job is to trust your gut. Your concrete action this week, next time money shows up in any form, before you say yes, ask 3 questions. Whose money is it? What does it want back? And what happens to me if it goes wrong? Maybe the answers are great and you sign happily and fine. But you'd be shocked how often nobody asked because the athlete didn't think that they were allowed to. We talk a lot about this on this show about making connections and trading your audience for equity. But trust who you get into bed with. Because it's important. The risk that you take is reputational. The Dodgers, Guggenheim, all of these insurance companies, they're all connected. And the question right now is, what's going on? And we don't know. And it affects us. It affects us as fans. It doesn't affect our wallets. Yet, maybe not yet. But if some of these companies are publicly listed and there's a sell-off, how's that going to trickle into the rest of the economy? How's this going to affect the annuity holders? The people who have spent maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars in premiums and they don't know where the money that they're going to get is back? And I wouldn't have done this. If there was nothing to see here and Mark Walter like put the Lakers like up for sale and nobody had bought it yet, and they're like, well, we're just kind of testing the markets like other teams do all the time. The Washington Nationals were like on the block for a long time. But the first thing we heard was Bob Iger and Joshua Kushner buy the Lakers for $12.5 billion over a weekend. So if there was nothing to see here, then maybe everybody's blowing this out of proportion. And if there's nothing to see here, and maybe he just like didn't want the Lakers anymore. It's not really about baseball. But the way that money moving into sports is affecting us. Money is moving around in ways that we, the people, can't see, and it's affecting us. It's affecting the things that we love. Grandma and the Dodgers. So I hope this helped. I hope this helped. Help me think through the problems. What are the problems? We don't know where the money is coming from or is. We also don't know what's going to happen from this. What we do know is how we can relate these types of things back to the thing that we're currently doing. Number one, know where the money is coming from if you ever do a deal. We know all of this stuff that's happening with the Los Angeles Clippers, the Kawhi stuff, what backroom dealings, what the money from the tree planting company, affirmation. They went bankrupt and their CEO is in prison or whatever for 10 years. And if you invested in them, you got nothing back. So it can happen at a high level, affirmation. It can happen at the highest level with maybe the company that owns the most professional sports arms franchises in the world. But it raises the same question a retiree should ask about her annuity. Will the money be there when the bill comes due? A huge thank you to my guest, Jake Sudreth, today. Thank you. Thank you for being here. The show is presented by Athletes Fund. And this was a lot of fun to be able to dive further into this and to have this conversation with you. And I cannot wait until I see you again tomorrow. Thanks.